SeaWorld's thrilling orca shows hide a darker truth about the powerful animals they try to tame. Malia, an orca born in captivity, seemed calm until one quiet June day when her instincts took over. A trainer stood too close, and Malia's jaws snapped shut, trapping the trainer's arm and breaking the illusion of control. What followed was a cover-up, leaving a haunting question. Can we ever truly control the wild? Malia is the daughter of Nanali and Tilikum. She has lived all her life at SeaWorld Orlando. Basically, that's her home. Born and raised in captivity, she's grown familiar with human interaction. Yet beneath her trained demeanor, Malia remains a powerful predator by nature. In 2022, Malia was just 15 years old when the unimaginable happened. Orcas are called killer whales, and as their name implies, they kill and eat things that are even way bigger than them. If that didn't justify just how terrifying they are, I would have you know that these very incredible creatures eat salmon, schooling fish, squid, seals, sea lions, porpoises, and other whale species. And they eat the water's most popular and very feared predator, the sharks. The open sea feels calm and boundless, until a sudden, violent jolt shatters the silence. Shadows circle beneath the water, massive shapes lurking just out of view. Then, without warning, they strike. A pod of orcas ramming your boat with fierce, calculated force. These aren't ordinary encounters. They're targeted attacks by the ocean's top predators, leaving people stranded, vulnerable, and desperate for escape. The day had started like any other for the marine research team aboard the Oceanic Explorer. They'd ventured into the calm, glistening waters near the Strait of Gibraltar, ready to study the migration patterns of local marine life. The sun was bright, the ocean stretched endlessly around them, and all seemed quiet and serene. The researchers, deeply absorbed in their work, had no reason to suspect anything out of the ordinary. For hours, they recorded data, noted sightings, and adjusted their equipment, aware only of the gentle rise and fall of the waves. Then, just as one researcher was setting up the sonar to monitor nearby schools of fish, there was a hard, sudden jolt. The whole boat shook. Startled, the team looked around, their eyes searching the water for the source. Before they could react, another jolt struck from below, harder this time, knocking one researcher off balance. It took them a moment to realize they weren't alone. The shadows moved below, dark, massive, and circling. The research team quickly recognized the creatures beneath them, orcas. But something about their movements was unsettling. These weren't just passing animals curious about the vessel. These orcas had an agenda. Suddenly, the calm waters erupted as one of the orcas slammed directly into the boat's side, causing equipment to rattle and spill overboard. The vessel lurched dangerously, throwing the researchers into each other and sending stacks of notes and instruments sliding across the deck. Heartbeats quickened as they braced themselves, realizing this was more than a casual encounter. As the boat steadied momentarily, one researcher managed to get to their feet and reach for the radio. They fumbled, trying to send out a mayday call. But before the signal went through, another, even more powerful impact knocked the wind out of them. The orcas were relentless, ramming the boat with frightening precision, and each hit seemed to be targeted directly at the vessel's rudder and hull. The crew could hear the grinding sound of metal twisting under pressure as one of the orcas struck again, aiming low and shattering part of the protective metal guard around the rudder. With each blow, the boat rocked more violently, throwing everyone off balance. The radio crackled to life as the desperate mayday went through, and the captain managed to shout their coordinates before another blow nearly capsized the boat. But even as he tried to keep everyone calm, his face betrayed his fear. He knew this wasn't a typical orca encounter. Something had set these animals off, and there was no telling how long the boat could withstand the repeated attacks. Meanwhile, the orcas showed no signs of stopping. Through the water's surface, the researchers caught glimpses of the sleek black and white bodies circling, their dorsal fins cutting through the waves like silent daggers. The largest orca, likely the leader, charged once more, targeting the rudder with terrifying accuracy. It seemed almost as if it knew exactly where to hit to immobilize the vessel. With each impact, the situation grew more dire. The equipment on board, essential for their research, lay scattered and broken, some of it lost to the sea entirely. Water began to seep in through cracks in the hull, and the boat's once sturdy framework started to groan under the relentless assault. One researcher tried to secure what equipment he could, only to stumble and fall as another jolt sent him sprawling. They all knew they couldn't hold out much longer. The Mayday signal had gone out, but time felt stretched thin as they waited, hoping desperately for a rescue. Meanwhile, the orcas continued to batter the vessel, and every minute felt like an eternity. One researcher clung to the edge, her knuckles white as she stared wide-eyed at the water, watching as a juvenile orca surfaced just feet away from her, a large piece of fiberglass clutched in its mouth like a trophy. The sight chilled her. These creatures weren't just attacking. They seemed to be learning, practicing. Finally, after what felt like hours, a rescue vessel's lights appeared on the horizon, cutting through the haze of salt spray and sunlight. Relief swept over the research team, but their ordeal wasn't over yet. The boat was now dangerously low in the water, tilting from the damage sustained. The orcas, sensing the new presence, began to retreat slowly, though they didn't vanish entirely. They continued to circle, watching as the rescue crew approached. The rescuers worked quickly, throwing lines and pulling the battered crew to safety, but the damage to the Oceanic Explorer was undeniable. As the last of the researchers scrambled onto the rescue boat, they looked back to see their vessel listing to one side, water pouring in through gaping holes left by the attacks. Within minutes, the research boat began to sink, finally claimed by the relentless sea. Safe but shaken, the team watched as the orcas, now calm, almost indifferent, swam away, disappearing into the depths as though the attack had been nothing more than a game. For the researchers, however, it was an experience that would haunt them. These animals, which they had studied and respected, had shown them a side they had never anticipated, a side that defied explanation and challenged their understanding of orca behavior. Back on land, the research team recounted their story to colleagues and reporters, their voices filled with lingering disbelief. Many of them had spent years studying marine life, including orcas, and had always viewed these creatures as intelligent, social animals. But this encounter left them with questions they couldn't answer. Why had the orcas targeted them so relentlessly? Was it play, aggression, or something else altogether? The boat's severe damage was a stark reminder of the raw power these animals held, and the team couldn't shake the feeling that they'd witnessed a behavior that went beyond anything in the scientific literature. But just when you thought it couldn't get worse, another family's peaceful day on the water turned into an unthinkable nightmare. It was a perfect day for sailing, the kind of day the Smith family had been dreaming of since they planned their trip. The sky was clear, the sun sparkled on the water, and the gentle breeze filled their sails as they ventured out into the open sea near the Strait of Gibraltar. The children, Sarah and Lucas, leaned over the boat's railing, laughing with wide-eyed excitement at every splash and ripple, hoping for a glimpse of something incredible. Little did they know, their wish would soon be granted, but in a way that would turn their joy into terror. As they sailed, Sarah spotted a shadow moving under the water, pointing it out to her family with a gleeful squeal. Her eyes were alight with wonder. The shadow grew larger, and soon, several sleek black and white forms surfaced around the boat. Orcas. The family gasped, overwhelmed with awe. Lucas clutched his mother's hand, his gaze fixed on the majestic animals gliding effortlessly through the water beside them. To him, it felt like something out of a storybook, a magical encounter with creatures of the sea. The orcas seemed curious, circling the boat, occasionally dipping below the surface only to reappear a few feet away. For a few minutes, the Smiths watched in amazement, snapping pictures and leaning over the edge to get a better look. The father, John, kept one hand on the wheel, steering slowly, his face lit with a wide smile as he watched his children's excitement. This is the stuff memories are made of, he thought to himself, feeling a warmth of pride and happiness. But as quickly as their wonder had blossomed, it was shattered. The largest orca suddenly disappeared beneath the boat, followed by the others. John noticed it first, a slight uneasy feeling as the boat rocked in a way that didn't feel natural. And then it happened. A powerful jolt slammed into the side of the boat, nearly knocking them off their feet. Sarah let out a startled cry, clinging to her mother as the boat shook violently. Another impact came, and this time it felt as though the boat lifted out of the water for a split second before crashing back down. Panic set in. John frantically looked around, trying to figure out what was happening, but the answer became all too clear. The orcas were ramming the boat, their sleek bodies crashing into the hull with calculated force. The children's laughter had turned to frightened screams as they clung to their parents, their once wide eyes now filled with terror. The orcas showed no signs of stopping. They struck the boat again and again, targeting the rudder, causing the vessel to spin uncontrollably. Equipment scattered across the deck as the boat lurched, the sails flapping wildly. John struggled to maintain control, but it was useless. The rudder had been damaged, and the boat was now at the mercy of the orcas. As the attacks grew more intense, the boat began to take on water. John knew he needed to send a distress signal, but his focus was on keeping his family safe. He yelled over the chaos, telling everyone to grab life jackets and hold on. His wife, Emily, held Sarah and Lucas close, her voice shaking as she tried to reassure them. But deep down, she was just as terrified as they were, feeling utterly powerless against the force beneath the waves. In a final, devastating blow, the largest orca rammed the boat's side with enough power to tip it. The boat capsized, throwing the family into the icy water. Chaos erupted as they scrambled to stay afloat, each grasping for anything to hold on to. John surfaced, gasping, and immediately searched for his family, his heart pounding with dread. He spotted Lucas clinging to a piece of the broken hull, his face pale with fear. He swam over, pulling his son close and telling him to hold on tight. Nearby, he saw Emily struggling to keep Sarah above water. The waves crashed around them, and with each swell, the remnants of their boat drifted farther apart. The ocean had transformed from a playground to a nightmare, and their only hope was to stay together and pray for rescue. But the current was relentless. It pulled them apart, inch by inch, and soon, John realized he was losing sight of Emily and Sarah. He called out to them, his voice strained and desperate, but the roar of the waves swallowed his words. He clung to Lucas, his arms tight around his son, feeling the weight of helplessness as the ocean carried his wife and daughter farther away. Time felt suspended in those moments, each second stretching into eternity. John held Lucas close, whispering words of comfort he didn't fully believe, his own heart breaking with every minute that passed without sight of Emily and Sarah. He tried to stay strong for his son, but the cold, unforgiving sea had already claimed so much. Eventually, a rescue team arrived, alerted by their earlier distress call. They pulled John and Lucas from the water, wrapping them in blankets and tending to their shock and exhaustion. But as they scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of Emily and Sarah, the harsh reality settled in. They were gone. The rescue team searched tirelessly, but it was too late. The ocean had taken them. If you thought that was intense, wait until you hear about the fishermen who faced a relentless battle with these powerful predators. It was a typical morning for Miguel and his crew aboard the Sea Rover, a well-worn fishing vessel that had seen years of rough seas and prosperous catches. The fishermen were no strangers to the ocean's unpredictable moods, navigating the vast waters off the coast of Spain with skill and respect. That morning, the sea was calm and the crew was hopeful. The fish were plentiful, and they had already started hauling in a promising catch. As they worked, Miguel spotted a shadow gliding beneath the surface, and a familiar black fin broke the water nearby. The sight of orcas was always a rare thrill, a reminder of the untamed beauty of the ocean. The rest of the crew paused to watch, their eyes fixed on the majestic animals that had come alongside their boat. They admired the orca's grace as they swam near the vessel, circling with ease. Some of the younger crew members even leaned over the railing, pointing and whispering in awe. For a moment, the fishermen were entranced, forgetting about their nets and lines in the presence of the ocean's top predators. But admiration quickly turned to concern when the largest orca veered closer, circling back toward the boat with a new intensity in its movements. The orca's sleek, dark form cut through the water with purpose, and Miguel noticed that its gaze seemed fixed on the vessel. Then, without warning, it lunged forward, ramming the side of the boat with a force that sent a shudder through the hull. The men staggered, bracing themselves against the unexpected jolt. Another impact followed, this time even stronger. The fisherman's excitement was gone, replaced by a growing sense of unease. He knew these waters well, but he had never seen orcas behave like this. The orcas had shifted from curiosity to aggression, and their movements were coordinated. They struck the boat again, causing it to rock violently, and Miguel realized they weren't dealing with a passing encounter. The orcas were targeting them, their powerful bodies colliding with the vessel in calculated blows. The crew scrambled to respond, grabbing whatever they could to ward off the attackers. One of the men picked up a metal pole, banging it against the hull in a desperate attempt to create noise that might scare the orcas away. Another lit a flare, hoping the sudden light would send the animals retreating. But the orcas seemed unfazed, undeterred by the noise or the flashes of light. They continued their assault, circling back to strike the boat with unwavering determination. Miguel's heart pounded as he directed his crew, his mind racing for solutions. The boat was sturdy, but it wasn't built to withstand repeated blows from animals of such size and power. Each impact felt more threatening, more final. He tried to keep his men calm, but the fear was evident in their eyes. They were fishermen, used to battling the elements, not creatures that seemed bent on sinking them. The attacks grew more intense, each strike pushing the boat closer to its limits. Miguel could feel the vessel groaning under the strain, the wooden planks creaking as water began to seep in. One of the younger crew members, Carlos, lost his footing as the boat pitched sideways, his hands scrambling for a grip. Miguel grabbed his arm, pulling him up just as another orca rammed the stern, causing the boat to spin. Their nets, once filled with fish, now floated haphazardly around the deck, a mess of gear and tangled lines that only added to the chaos. In a last-ditch effort, Miguel shouted for everyone to grab whatever could be thrown. They hurled equipment, empty crates, even chunks of ice from the storage hold, anything that might create a barrier or a distraction. But the orcas seemed almost toying with them, dodging the debris with ease and returning to batter the vessel's weak points. One of the orcas took a large piece of wood from the rudder in its mouth, shaking it as if to show its dominance. The sight sent a chill through Miguel. These animals weren't just attacking. They seemed to know exactly where to strike to cripple the boat. As water began flooding the lower deck, Miguel knew they couldn't hold out much longer. He signaled one of his crew to send a distress call, praying that help would arrive before it was too late. But every second felt like an hour as the orcas continued their relentless assault, their dark shapes moving with a precision that defied understanding. One orca slammed into the side again, and the boat tilted dangerously, half submerged in the cold Atlantic waters. Finally, the sound of an approaching rescue vessel broke through the chaos. A sliver of hope pierced the fishermen's panic as the rescue crew threw out lines and began pulling them aboard, one by one. But even as they scrambled to safety, they couldn't help but look back at their boat, now battered and nearly submerged. The Sea Rover, their livelihood, was sinking, and with it, a part of their spirit. As the last fisherman was pulled onto the rescue boat, the orcas backed off, their presence still looming beneath the waves as if observing the scene. Miguel watched with a heavy heart as the Sea Rover disappeared beneath the water, leaving only ripples and scattered debris behind. The orcas had won this battle, and their strength and intelligence were undeniable. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to watch our next one shown on screen.